I didn't want to make mistakes. I didn't want to blow it.
Right.
I wanted to be in it for the long game,
Right.
So I did strategically try and find smaller things just so I could understand the craft a bit better and also understand myself a bit better and maintain some degree of privacy and dignity and
try to have
all
a
those
life.
things that were totally, and exactly.
Yeah.
And then I had my daughter when I was 25, and sort of all of that sort of stuff kind of evaporated a bit in terms of feeling watched and whether I cared about it. That just all kind of went away.
Really? You think they were like,
well, my focus was my child, and that was all that mattered.
Oh, I thought you were saying that they weren't interested in you. Well, she's got a kid now. Let's move on.
Well, they were definitely less interested in me at that point. That's for sure.
And that's the 20-year-old.
Yeah, she's 20 now. Yeah.
But at that point, you say you were only acting a few years, but yeah, I mean, it seems that you were surrounded by actors all the time, that you grew up in a world of actors.
Well, I did and I didn't. It's really interesting with British actors, because well, in my case, because I speak well, people often think there's a sort of a huge pedigree and training that comes underneath me. And actually, I was from a fairly working class background and grew up in a crowded terraced house on a busy main road in Reading, Berkshire, where I'm from. And my dad was an actor, but believe me, he was also a Christmas tree seller. He was a postman. He worked for a tarmac firm. He drove a van for a small company of
so
people.
So he was a frustrated actor.
Absolutely. Very, very much so.
Well, then my question is it's like people who, I'm just using this as a comparison. Like if you grow up in a house where somebody smokes and either you become a smoker or you end up hating smoking. So seeing the struggles, your father was going through as an actor. I just imagined that I would struggle as well. So I actively remember thinking to myself, okay, I've got to get a well-paid part-time job with a nice boss who lets me take time off if I have to go on auditions. I really remember thinking that. How old were you?
But I never anticipated, about 14.
So you knew you wanted to do it. Like your father did your mother act as well?
No, my mother was not an actress, no. But funnily enough...
She was the woman who put up with actors?
She was the woman who tolerated it all. My poor mum. But her parents, this is very odd because she really was quite shy, my mother.
Yeah.
And never would have wanted to act. But her parents were actually both actors, which is strange. And she had 4 brothers and a sister. And a couple of her brothers were actors as well. And my father was a friend with one of her brothers, which is why they then met.
It's sort of interesting. It's kind of like that weird kind of, you get in relationships with things that are comfortable from your childhood. So she was sort of stuck in an actor loop because her dad.
I know it's funny. I mean, there must be something in the genes. I don't know because my older sister acts. My younger sister. She has 5 children now, my younger sister, but she is also an actress when she's not being a parent. So it's just sort of everywhere, really. My daughter is now an actress. I mean, it's kind of just mad.
It is crazy. It is
crazy.
I mean, how come you haven't all worked together? Have you? Like you and your sisters?
No, we haven't. I think I'm probably going to work with my daughter in about a year's time.
Oh yeah.
There's something that's come up. Yeah, she's good.
She's going to play your daughter?
She's good.
Is she good?
She might. She's really good. She's
yeah?
really, really good. She's a lot better than I was at her age. Bloody hell. I mean, she's quite grounded and very sort of just, I don't know. She's very unafraid. I feel I was much more afraid and tentative when I was her age.
Were you self-conscious? Well, it seems like you must have been self-conscious if you knew enough to know that when you found the success, it would have, launched you into blockbuster movies forever. You decided that you weren't quite good enough.
Well, I decided I didn't know enough. I just knew that I didn't know enough.
Yeah.
I still had lots to learn, But I think because I hadn't been trained, I left school when I was 16 and I got lucky. So I had a slight insecurity that people also, because of that British thing and speaking very well, people assumed that I had this training, this sort of, underpinning of, wealth of knowledge. And I didn't at all.
When were the first roles?
I did a television job when I was 16 years old. I did a sitcom. And then I was cast in Peter Jackson's film Heavenly Creatures when I was 17.
That was the big movie.
The first film I ever did. Yeah, that was the first film I ever did. And then I did Sense and Sensibility when I was 19.
I love Melanie. Do you talk to Melanie still?
I haven't spoken to her for a while, but we've loosely kept in touch over the years. Yeah.
I did a show with her. I did a scene with her in a show.
Oh, did you? She's so great.
Yeah, she is.
She's a wonderful actress. God, she's so good. She's so good.
Were you guys in that movie? That movie was like, it was one of the, like, I feel traumatized watching that movie. Like I remember the movie as having a profound emotional effect on me. It must have
that's interesting. I mean, it had a hugely emotional effect on me. I mean, I was 17 years old, and as a first experience, as a first one out of the gate, just experience of playing a part in a film, because of the nature of the story and playing those two real life characters, it had to be incredibly immersive. So it taught me so much about just the process of acting and building a character and preparation and focus and all of those things, which really stood me in quite good stead in terms of a short, sharp injection of sort of education.
And how was Peter as a director? Did he?
Oh, he was amazing. He was just. It was like working every day with your big brother or your dad. Or I mean, he was very connected to me and Melanie as a friend, and just really, really looked after us. The whole experience was very powerful and emotional, and it was a small independent film made in New Zealand. We filmed in most of the real locations that things have actually taken place, and it's a real murder story, and we filmed in those places, and that has an effect on you as a young person. Very special experience.
Yeah, and as somebody who's immersed in the emotions of the actual story, to go to where all that stuff is, has got to be some weird ritual of so if you weren't trained, like, where did you pick it up? Like, you weren't like, did you see your dad work? Did you go see your dad in shows? Did you spend time at the theater as a kid?
I did. I spent time at the theatre. Yes, I did. I was in a sort of a kids drama company, theatre company.
So you had some stage chops. I mean, you knew. Yeah,
I'd experienced the feeling of standing on a stage in front of a big audience and being completely terrified, but feeling a huge buzz. I definitely had done that. But when I became an actress, I never imagined I would be in films or even on television. I just assumed that I would have a sort of a struggling, hopefully interesting life in the theatre.
Yeah.
So the fact that suddenly I was doing films was totally mad.
So where'd you pick up did you just learn on the job then? I mean, was that the process? Because I tried
Yes.
Really?
I learned on the job.
But like, even talking about Heavenly Creatures, where you're sort of like, making choices and sort of, figuring out how to get these tools. I mean, who gave you those? Who told you those were this is how you do it?
I honestly, I watched and I learned and I made mistakes and learned from them,
Yeah.
But also I had, I had some fortunate moments with great actors early on. I did Sense and Sensibility when I was 19 years old, working with Emma Thompson and Alan Rickman, and just learning how to sort of conduct yourself on a film set and how to be with other people and behaving in a respectful, collaborative way, which I was already instinctively doing, but seeing it from actors who were much more experienced and wiser and older than myself, that was one of the greatest things of all, because it was that really set me up for Titanic. When I did Titanic, I didn't have any delusions of grandeur. I was going to work. I was playing a part, and people would say to me, "Oh my God, it's such a big film." And I'd think, "Oh God, don't say that. It doesn't make any difference whether it's big or small. It's the same. The work is the same."
Yeah.
And I had already learned that work ethic thing by watching other actors and being around other actors, from Emma and Alan. Yeah.
I mean, but it strikes me that Emma's classically trained, right? Probably.
Yes, she is. Yeah.
So that's a whole different approach. You're basically like saying, and I'm not, this isn't in any judgmental way, only because like I've been doing some acting, is that, you come to it that your emotional availability as an actress is something that you engage sort of naturally. You don't so to actually learn the professionalism of it because like Emma is a great actress, but she's going to approach it differently than you, I would imagine, in terms of putting together.
I mean, everyone has a totally different approach and a sort of a completely different process, and also that changes all the time. It even changes for me all the time, depending on the nature of the role, I suppose. But I've definitely learned on the job and still do. I still do. Honestly, there are still things that fascinate me.
Well, I mean, I watched the new movie, Ammonite. Is that how you say it? Ammonite?
Yeah, Ammonite, yeah.
And it's a very kind of powerful, poetic, sparse movie, but it's so intense and it's great. You're great in it. Saoirse's great in it. The movie's, it's one of those movies where I watch, I'm like, who would think to tell this story? Where does this come from? But it's actually based on a real person, huh?
Yeah, that's right. So it is based on real people and a real person. Mary Anning, who I play, she was a very significant female paleontologist of her time. Our film is set in 1840 on the Jurassic coast of England, the south coast of England.
Is that where you shot it? So near where you are now?
It's about 2 hours from where I live. And the coastline there is largely unchanged. It recedes every year. It's sort of quite a chalky lime cliff face, and they regularly have cliff falls there. Mary Anning was a formidable woman in a world of science and geology that was dominated by men. These men would buy her finds and reappropriate them as their own discoveries. Actually put their name on her work.
Right.
And she lived a life of extreme poverty and struggle, but she was brilliant at what she did. She found her first ichthyosaur when she was only 11 years old. She and her brother, it took them over a year to dig it out. And she was responsible for some very significant pioneering discoveries. But because she was a woman, no one ever knew anything about her. And even today, if you Google Mary Anning or you try and find a book about Mary Anning, you will be able to find things about her finds, about her work that have been subsequently written over the years. But there's very little known about her personal and private life. There's a lot known about her childhood. Because of how she lived in this extremely impoverished way with her mother and her father, who died when she was only 10. And her father had taught her everything she knew about fossil finding. And she had quite a close connection with him. She had several siblings die. When I say several, like six. 6 siblings died, and 2 even before she was born, of smallpox, sort of poverty illnesses.
And so the love story between you and
so that was
Saoirse's
invented.
Character. Right.
Is invented, yeah.
So there's really nothing known. Do people know if she was?
No, there is nothing historically documented at all about Mary Anning's personal intimate relationships with women or men. There is nothing documented. And Francis Lee, the writer and director of the film, he came to feel that in telling this story, he wanted to give Mary a relationship, a partner who felt worthy of her, because she was such an extraordinary, quiet but formidable woman. And because she existed in a world that was dominated by men, he didn't feel that it would have been right to pair her with a man, because that was the thing that she was sort of struggling against in many ways, living in this very patriarchal society, patriarchal world. And so it felt right to pair her with a woman. And what I really love about the story and about the film, I've only seen it once, but what I really appreciate about it is the connection between these two women that comes out of work, at a time when we so often see on film, women in marriages to men who are wealthier than them, or they're married off because they need financial security or to have children, to literally bear children, to become a parent. But actually exploring this different type of woman, telling this different story about someone who worked and worked and worked for every single thing that she had, and the connection these women form through the work and their mutual fascination and love for it. That to me was something really quite unusual and wonderful, and that they fall in love as a result of their connection over ammonites, over